I'm Sakshi Kasit. I'm from ACS student chapter at Bombay College of Pharmacy, and I welcome you all in this panel discussion. A lot of Indian students plan to go abroad for masters and PhD. They want to apply to grad school. They are really excited, but they lack information most of the time, the correct information. To be very specific, we all tend to have a lot of myths about studying abroad. Sometimes we think it's a lot of expenses. Sometimes we don't really know about scholarships. Sometimes it's just lack of awareness about what factors we should consider before applying to grad school. So today we have a very amazing, diverse international panel over here. We have James Murray from Philadelphia. We have Giulia from Germany. We have Helen from Texas. We have Carlson from UK, and we have Abhishek from Minneapolis. And all of them are going to help us today to get deeper insights into the application process and how to uh, consider a lot of different important key factors which are necessary before applying for masters and PhD abroad. So we are going to get amazing perspectives from universities as well, and US universities as well. So these are the two main hubs where majority of Indian students apply. So again, I welcome you all on behalf of American Chemical Society's Bombay College of Pharmacy student chapter, and as well as the institute. And I hope you all enjoy this session. So passing on to Soham Mohare, who is our secretary of the student chapter. I'll invite him and he'll just give a brief introduction about all our panelists, and then we can go ahead with the session. So welcome again.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Our first panelist for today is Carlson Alexander. He is currently a DPhil student in inorganic chemistry from St. Cross College at the University of Oxford. He is currently exploring um, a new path toward biological anion recognition by lengthened complexes. Hailing from a small town close to Cape Comorin in India, he completed his undergraduation in Loyola College, Chennai, and went to NIT Tiruchirappalli for his post-graduation. His profound interest in inorganic, and bioorthogonal chemistry is complemented by his research projects in Loyola, TIFR, and the Max Planck Institute. He is also a member of chemistry organizations like the ACS, RSC, Society of Chemical Industries, European Society of Molecular Imaging, and the World Molecular Imaging Society, and is always looking out for new developments in chemistry and potential opportunities. Our next panelist for today is Abhishek Kulkarni. Abhishek Kulkarni earned his Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Bombay College of Pharmacy in 2017. He then went on to pursue his master's in pharmaceutical sciences from Virginia Commonwealth University in the USA. After graduating in 2019, he started his PhD in medicinal chemistry from the University of Minnesota, USA. Currently, his research involves developing protein-based immunotherapeutics to combat cancer. Our next analyst for today is Dr. Jim Murray. He received his BS in chemistry and his MS in organic chemistry from Drexel University. He has been on the faculty of Immaculata University since 2001, teaching courses in organic, inorganic, and physical chemistry. Dr. Murray was also the 2019 chair of the Philadelphia local section ACS, and is currently the chair of career services and an ACS career consultant. In 2020, he helped to establish the Eastern US Younger Chemists Committee partnership as an executive board member and as an advisor. Our next panelist is Helen Hernandez. Helen Hernandez has completed her BS in biochemistry from the Florida Institute of Technology and MS in physical chemistry from the University of Oklahoma. She had a number of early career internships, including one in government, and has spent some valuable time in academia. She has spent the last 6 years in industry. Currently, she is the founder of AL Research Initiatives, LLC, and is working as a scientist in the same organization. Each experience and each chapter in her professional career has brought wonderful growth opportunities and helped steer her towards her passion. And our last but not the least panelist for today is Dr. Giulia Pagani. Dr. Pagani holds a master's degree in bioinformatics from Bicocca University of Milan. The thesis carried out under the supervision of Dr. Giulia Colombo, who is the leader of computational biochemistry group at the Institute of the National Research Council of Italy. For her PhD, her main focus was the characterization of the structure function of large biological systems. During her PhD, she was also selected in the MCBI Students Exchange Program between Germany and India, during which she spent 2 months at the Molecular Modeling Division at IICT Hyderabad. In 2018, she earned a doctorate in the Department of Pharmaceutical and Medicinal Chemistry of the Heinrich Heine University of Dusseldorf. During her master's and her doctoral years, her work explored the powerful use of molecular dynamic simulations as computational techniques to obtain atomic level insights into the structure and dynamics of proteins. Since 2018, she has been a postdoctoral fellow under the supervision of Professor Dr. Erika von Mutius at the Institute of Asthma and Allergy Prevention, Helmholtz Zentrum, München. Thank you.
Thank you, Soham. So now we'll ask our panelists to introduce and describe their professional journeys and share with us their insights a little. So why don't we go ahead with Jim first? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Sakshi. So I actually started my undergraduate studies in chemical engineering, not chemistry. And I was very thankful that the university that I had chosen to attend, as part of degree requirements, you had to do 3 6-month industrial rotations as part of your undergraduate degree requirements. And the first industrial rotation that I did was purely a chemistry job. It was an analytical chemistry job. And I have to say that my boss at that position was the person, it was the right mentor at the right time for me. And he is the person most responsible for me being where I am today, because for about 3 weeks, he was on my case every day saying, look, you're not a chemical engineer. You think like a chemist. Change your major and everything will be better for you. You will be a happier person. And I did. And then I had the privilege of being a medicinal chemist working for what is now GlaxoSmithKline, but back in the day used to be SmithKline Beecham. And I enjoyed that. It was a very, very good experience that let me know that I wanted to be an organic chemist, but I just didn't feel that going into industry every day and working there was a place that felt good for me. So I pursued being an academic chemist, and I had very good professors when I was an undergraduate who took the time to talk to me and give me opportunities that let me see what being an academic chemist was all about. And I chose that as my profession. And I've been doing it for 20 years. So I think I like it, or otherwise I would have left a long time ago. So being able to have the right mentors in your career at the right time is really, really important because, and I don't mean any disrespect or offense, but I really didn't like being a chemical engineering major. I didn't like it. But as Sakshi had mentioned at the beginning of this, I didn't have the right kind of information to know what a chemist did, what a chemical engineer did. And it was just like, okay, well, I did well in chemistry in high school, so I might as well just pick this and, okay, this has to work. And I realized, no, this didn't work and that I needed to make a change. But it was only by having the right mentor that made making the change meaningful for me. So always ask questions and don't be afraid to seek out those people who went through the process that you might be going through now and have the experience and try to get their insights because it can be very, very beneficial to your future career.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was really helpful. Why don't we go ahead with Giulia now?
Okay, so when I was an undergraduate, I think I had already very clear in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a PhD afterwards. So I shaped my career in that direction, meaning that I don't know how is it in India, but in Italy, for example, when you're about to finish and you have to write your thesis, you can either decide to do your thesis directly at the university very quickly, or you can decide to spend more time, as I did it, because I did my thesis out of the university. I picked a research center and I spent a year there. But I knew that this would have given me the opportunity to then move forward from it. And that's actually what happened, because I spent a year there. I did my thesis. I worked there, I could say, for free for a year. But then this also gave me the right connection to move abroad. And that's what happened. So when I graduated, I was offered a position at the University of Milan for doing my PhD, but as many students probably there, I also wanted to go abroad, and I was told that actually would have made much more sense to continue my career abroad, and that what brought me to Düsseldorf, Germany. So I was given the choice to move either to America, but I felt it was a bit too far for me, or Canada, so I wanted to stick to Europe. And in Europe, I would say either you go far up north, or probably Germany and the UK or in the Netherlands, but those are the best place where to go. Germany has a lot of opportunities. Then I will go to the questions. Well, that was actually what happened. So my professor back to Italy sort of knew a professor, because also if you stay in the field, most of the professors, they will know each other across Europe. So it was easier to sort of make the link and then get a position and starting my career continue my career. I'm sorry, starting and continue my career as a bioinformatician.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Giulia. Okay, Helen, what about you?
Sorry. Hello. So I, let's see, I started my, when I applied for undergraduates, I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to go study dolphins, and then I realized that I liked biochemistry, and then I ended up being very fortunate to be at an undergraduate institution that helped me get a lot of internship experience, and realized that I didn't really want to be in the biochemistry track. I really liked chemistry. And I ended up being in a research project where I was doing computational chemistry, and I really enjoyed that. So then I went for my PhD in the computational field, and about a year in, realized that it in fact was not what I wanted to do. And so I got my master's, and I really enjoyed the physical chemistry aspects of what I had been doing there. And so I ended up getting a position in industry where I've been for 6 years doing physical chemistry. So I think looking back on it, I've just learned so many lessons, because initially the project that made me think I wanted to go in one direction, what appealed to me about it was actually that I had developed a very strong sense of personal investment, personal ownership over the work. And so in retrospect, it wasn't that I wanted to do it wasn't that I wanted to do computational chemistry. It's that I really enjoyed that project. And so I think that a lot of people, that's essentially my journey in a nutshell. And now I'm in a brand new chapter, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But I think looking back on it, a lot of people approach their professional academic career very focused on the academic portion, and having some experience in industry, I guess I am hoping to bring to this conversation to think about afterwards, to not get so focused in what actually ends up being, for some people a shorter time frame than others, a very short time frame in life. And so when you are going through these processes of determining what you want, think about the skill sets that you want to exit with. think about the jobs that are out there that you want to actually get on the other end, and to kind of look up and see the whole big picture. So that's a little bit of my journey and what I'm hoping to bring to the discussion.
Thanks, Helen. It was a new perspective to the conversation. Thank you. So why don't we go ahead with Carlson now?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, my interest in chemistry comes from my dad, who was also a chemist. So my father's my first hero in chemistry. So he basically works on inorganic chemistry, basically coordination chemistry. So, I mean, he's not a very famous researcher as such, but at least I know that he works quite hard, and his passion was quite motivating for me. And although I didn't score much in chemistry in my school days, I still decided to choose chemistry as my major, and I started to do it in Loyola College in Chennai, where I grew up. And I think towards the third year, which is my final year of undergrad, I thought it would be better to have like an internship or some kind of an exposure to another lab or another industry, but I didn't manage to get any position anywhere. But then that year, my college decided to advertise some projects, like if you're interested, you can join and work in a lab inside our college itself. And that's how I first started to work with platinum anti-cancer agents, which was quite new to me, and that's when I started reading journals and stuff, and I started to look into how science is communicated throughout. And after that, the project went for a year, and after I completed that, I then went for my master's at the National Institute of Technology. And there, that was also major in chemistry, and afterwards I had an opportunity to do an internship in Tata Institute of Fundamental Research for 2 months. So basically, I didn't do anything other than looking around what was there in the lab. But then the internship that was offered to me was more focused towards communicating science to other people and to know what other people do. And that's how I came to know about how different fields exist and how interdisciplinary chemistry is, rather than it being just a single entity as such. And when I was just working there, I came across a particular field of chemistry called bioorthogonal chemistry, which something I've never heard. All I knew was just the traditional inorganic, organic chemistry and stuff. So, and then when I was just looking more into it, I found a TED talk from Carolyn Bertozzi. And that was my interest towards chemical biology, and realized that how sugars involve in biological metabolism and stuff. So and I think that was my interest, and I thought that I would like to work on a similar area. And I was trying with different groups, and for my master's project, I was lucky to get an opportunity in Max Planck, but then it was not something related to glycobiology. It was just coordination chemistry, but then I was doing some lanthanide chemistry, where we make imaging probes to target metabolites or stuff in the living system. So that's how I started to do some intense piece of research, and that was my motivation to also apply to various universities for my PhD. So I focused either on chemical biology or on coordination chemistry that addresses biological challenges, and I got admission only for the F-block chemistry. So that's why I'm doing here, and here I'm working on imaging glycobiology using lanthanide complexes. So that's how my journey started from somewhere, and I ended up being here. And yeah, so that's my journey so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlson. You actually took us to the world of chemistry in describing a lot of projects and all. Thank you so much. So, Abhishek, tell us about your story.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone's story is so exciting. I'll try my best to make mine really exciting as well. But as Sakshi mentioned, I graduated from Bombay College of Pharmacy. So I actually have a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree. And then when in my third year and fourth year, I was determined to come to the US to pursue my master's and also hopefully PhD. And then I got into Virginia Commonwealth University to do my master's in medicinal chemistry. So when I did my applications and everything, of course, I looked at websites and professors and their projects and everything. And the projects that I had come in my mind that I would want to do this didn't even exist. So the websites were not updated, and things had changed, faculty had changed. So it was really difficult to okay, I come with this vision that I want to do this research, which no longer probably exists now. So what do you do? But systems here are such that they have, you can rotate in labs to know what's going on, and they give you a big overview of what the faculty are doing and so on. So I ended up choosing a lab that did synthetic organic chemistry, mostly on opioids. So I had the opportunity to work with a very well-known mu-opioid receptor antagonist, naltrexone, and making derivatives of that drug. I also got an opportunity to do some computational chemistry, like basic molecular docking and some molecular dynamic simulation. So I got a little bit of feel for the computational side of things as well. What I missed on was doing some chemical biology. So I really wanted to learn, there's an art where you make chemicals and compounds, but there's also how you test them, right, in systems and cells or animals and so on. So I really wanted an experience to do like cell-based assays to test the compounds that I synthesized. You want a big picture, you make some, you want to test some, look at their activity and so on. But I kind of missed out on that opportunity since it was 2 years into my master's, and my advisor felt that I was ready to graduate. So through the application process for my PhD, I wanted to kind of move away from what I already knew. So that's how I ended up coming to University of Minnesota and joined a lab that does hardcore protein engineering, chemical biology, molecular biology, and I wanted to, develop those skill sets. So basically go away from what I already know or maybe have an idea about to learn something completely new, get out from my comfort zone, challenge myself in knowing, other things and so on. And the human immune system was really appealing to me. So my current research focuses on redirecting human T cells and also human NK cells, which are, the two subsets of lymphocytes that are now being very popular in targeting cancer, for example. So in terms of University of Minnesota was my dream because one of our professors, Dr. Krishna Iyer, was also a student here a long time ago. So him mentioning that during my undergrad was something that, that's my dream. I want to be here. It's such a prestigious university. Hopefully I can make it. And I did. Hard work does pay off. And also, like Jim said, having the right mentors at the right time to guide you through the process is extremely important. So ask as many questions as you can, which I tried my best to do, which will help you and get you a long, long way. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey, Abhishek. And I completely agree with your statement that having the right mentors is really significant. And, this student chapter is also Professor Krishna Iyer is only our faculty advisor. So we are really grateful to have him as well. He keeps guiding us, at every step. And yeah, so it's really great to share that commonness. Okay, so why not begin with the session now? I'll invite Pravaja and Vindhya to begin with the questions that we had from our registrants. And yep, let's go ahead.
Right. So hi everyone. So the first question I will direct towards Abhishek. So what are the challenges as an Indian student with an Indian education background while pursuing higher education in America?
Sure. So there are many, many challenges for sure. And I don't think we all have the time to go through all of them. But I think the most important that I felt was the gap in communication skills. So what we come from India and communication skills in terms of both writing as well as, presentation skills, your oral and writing skills, because, questions here are very different than what we are used to back in India, where, it's pretty straightforward, but here it's mostly applied. So, your writing skills have to be really at par. So focusing on communication, and I took a lot of time in understanding what the professors were expecting in terms of answers. I had the habit, just probably like other people, to write a lot when it's not really required. Something where a question just demands maybe a couple of lines of answer, your answer. I wrote like a whole page which got me nowhere. So, adjusting yourself to what the professors expect in terms of your writing is really important. And I think everyone has to be prepared when you come here to do presentations. Your oral, you have to come up in front of your class, in front of your professor, other faculty, to showcase whatever the assignment that they have given you. So I think that was a big thing, because I never really said yes to any opportunity that came through BFAM, through the undergrad, to do any sort of presentation. There were not many, but I was kind of shy and was scared, like many other people, to come up, in front of a class of 50 students and talk about, something I probably don't know. I have to read so much about it. But here, when you come, there's no option. And there will not be an option going ahead, because oral communication is one of the biggest things, right? You sell yourself, your ideas, what your lab does, like what we are here right now, right? This communication is really important. So that would be one of the biggest things and the biggest challenge that we have to face once we come from India to here. But I guess things are improving now, with especially your student chapter doing, literature surveys and so on, which is really, really common and popular here. So good job on that. And I would suggest to any student that when you get an opportunity to do a presentation, just say yes. No matter how bad it is, just say yes, do it. You will learn from it going ahead, and it'll really, really help you once you are, wherever you go abroad.
Right. And so the next question is for Giulia. So what are the factors that you need to weigh in when you shortlist countries, universities, and even programs?
Okay, so I will speak for Germany because it's the country I know the best. So in Germany, there are two ways of getting to a PhD. So either you do at the university through a professor, or you do through a research center. Might be the Max Planck Institute, or might be like where I work, the Helmholtz Zentrum. And in these cases, they have usually a PhD school, and at the program, and you apply to this program, and then will be a selection process, and that's with some interviews or whatever you have to do. Or you can contact directly the professors. That's probably the easiest way. And well, Germany is a big country. There are universities all over the places, and in some universities easier to get in rather than other university. But you need to look at the professors. It might be a very good professors and at the university in the middle of Germany where nobody wants to go. But still, they might have a very nice project, and it might be easier to just get in touch with the professor and then get into the university, because in that case, it's sort of like a PhD. Doing a PhD in Germany is considered like a real job. So you are directly employed by the university, you work for the university, and therefore it will be up to the professor to decide whether you want to have you as a student or not. So that will be one-to-one interview. And the advantage is also that there are no fixed deadlines. So it's not like you have to apply in September, or you can apply. The professor might have an open position all over the year. So whenever you're ready to do that, you just, what I did, I used some keywords, very basic keywords in Google. So I wrote Bioinformatics Germany, and all these professors pop out, and I just started emailing, reading the project, and doing it. Besides that, there are two big, I think, here it's called, so the programs which are directly from the state, and they might have special program for India and Germany, and that's called the DFG, so the Deutsche Forschungszentrum, or they have the DAD, and you can always try maybe this kind of way, so either Europe or Germany based, so research program to get into university. But yes, so just keep in mind these two things. Either you do at the university and then you contact directly a professor, or you do through a research center, and then you have to see what are the programs which are offered by the institute that will be, and they will have fixed deadlines where to do, how to do, and everything is explained.
Yeah, so I want to ask the same question to Professor James. So what are the factors that you need to weigh in while selecting a program? So, for example, like you said that you changed your majors, right? So, like, what factors, like, do we as undergraduate students need to weigh in?
I think one of the most important things that you need to keep in mind as you're working through as an undergraduate, and I'll use a math example here, is nobody's career path is ever going to fit y equals mx plus b. All right. There are very, very, very few people who ever do that. And as you start to go through your undergraduate studies, you really need to have a sound awareness of self. And I saw a question popped up in the chat, and it's one of those things where when you get to maybe third year, fourth year, and graduation is coming, take some of your notes from your previous classes and just flip through them and was like, okay, what did I like? And of course, in chemistry, you can do sort of the obvious, oh, well, I liked organic and biochemistry, but I didn't like analytical and PChem. All right, that's one thing. But I think you have to go back and you have to look at it. Okay, I said that I liked organic and biochemistry. What was it about those areas that I really liked? And what intrigued me and what enticed me? And okay, when I was taking organic, what made me keep going back to the class, every week to keep studying this? And having that kind of an awareness will help you shape what it is that you choose to decide in studying later on. And you really have to ask the question, especially as an undergraduate, I'm a pharmacy major or I'm a chemistry major and I'm embarking on a career. And I have to start to take ownership of that career. And a lot of things that have been mentioned by many people in their introductions already this morning play into taking the ownership. We turn around and say, okay, I'm a chemistry major, and most people, whether they're scientists or not, can have a vague idea of what it is that you do. But I think the people who are going through it have to take ownership with regard to how do I get involved in this association with this major that I've decided to embark on. And the more that you can get involved, and as many people have said, ask questions and think about it, then you're going to be much more. I mean, we have to do it like scientists do. You have to be able to know the things before you go in the laboratory. So you can say, okay, I'm doing this experiment, and oh, I've done this experiment 100 times. But you still have to take some amount of time to think, okay, this is what I want to get from this. And this is what I want to get out of it. And I think Helen had addressed this a little bit, where you have to turn around and say, what's my end goal? What do I want to see myself end up doing? And if you think about a career is something that somebody chooses for what? Opportunities for growth, hopefully financial fulfillment, because, we have to live and eat. So that goes along with it. And also self-satisfaction. So if you don't have a good understanding of self and what drives you, how are you going to try to get self-satisfaction out of picking a career and knowing what it is that you want to do? And I always tell my own students, and I can say this because I've done it, try something. And you turn around and say, look, I did this for 6 months or a year or whatever the time frame might be, and I worked very hard and I learned from it, but I'm sorry, I just don't feel good in this, and I'm going to try something else. And it's a lot nicer to know what you like with regard to career earlier, rather than sitting there and saying, gee, I've been doing this job for 30 years and I really don't like it, and now I'm 50 or 55 and I want to change. It's a lot easier to change when you're earlier in your career rather than later. So just be good scientists and get as much information it is that you can, and look at what opportunities are out there. And I'll give you one of my own. I'm looking for most academics to improve your own background and research abilities. You usually apply for sabbatical. That's one of the big things that academics do. And I reached out to a biochemistry professor to do this. And he said to me, wait a minute, aren't you an organic chemist by training? And I was like, yes, that's correct. He goes, well, why are you asking me? There's several very well-known organic faculty here. Why don't you ask them? And I said, look, I've worked in an organic lab for 27 years. What else do I have to prove to myself or anybody else about my ability to work in an organic lab? I said, in 27 years, I probably made 10,000 compounds in the lab. I don't have to show anybody that I can do that. I said, I want to try to learn something new, something that I've never had experience in. And he goes, well, biochemistry is just organic chemistry, but we still move electrons around in biochemistry like you guys do. So he's like, okay, that makes sense. So at least trying something different and be willing to say, okay, yes, I applied to graduate school and I wanted to be organic chemist, but the further I got into my career, I realized that there's other aspects that are important for me to learn. And it's perfectly okay to say, yes, I've been in my career for X number of years, and I still have more that I can learn and that I got different skill sets that I can address. And more importantly, new people that I can meet. And I never know what meeting new people and starting a conversation is going to lead me to.
Right. And so there's this question we have, which is, what are the up and coming fields in the one can do masters in pharmacy and biotech after graduating in the next 3 or 4 years? So this question is open to any one of you guys.
I would say anything that ends in the word omics is going to be very, very big in the next couple of years. So the basic skills that you could have coming out as an organic chemist or a biochemist, I think anything related to those areas is going to be very, very up and coming. With advances in X-ray crystallography and the ability that it doesn't take you 6 months to get an X-ray structure anymore, anything that you can do that's going to allow you to probe deeper structures and how structure and function work together. And I don't care if you're designing small molecules or methods for analysis or some kind of concrete product, anything that's going to push, and many people had mentioned chemical biology, I think that's going to be a very, very up and coming. I think it's a mature field now, but I think it's going to end up becoming one of the very, very dominant ones as we go forward.
All right, great. And the next question is for Helen. So, how do we decide if we should opt for masters and PhD separately, or we should do an integrated program? So, like, what are the pros and cons of each?
So, actually, I'm not sure that after thinking about this a little more, I'm not sure I'm the best person, but I'll take a stab at the differences between the master's and the PhD, and then maybe somebody can add on in terms of the integrated programs versus separate. I would say that depending on the field that you go into, there's a little bit of the possibility that if you decide you want to leave with a master's and you've gone to a program where it's just the PhD program, there is a little bit of stigma that comes out of leaving with the master's. And so you should know that going into it. And so in a sense, going for the master's first gives you kind of a more natural out if you have decided that this is not the path you want to do. And to that end, I would get a year into your program. And actually what Jim was saying about kind of flipping back through your notes every so often to try to see what it is that you like, I'd add to that, do a job hunt. Do a job hunt and look at the jobs that align with what you're currently doing and see, like, is this a place that I want to be able to evaluate, okay, I have my master's now, do I want to go this direction for another few years, or do I want to go out and get more variety in skill sets and whatever that choice looks like for you. So obviously with a master's degree, there's going to be some more ceilings, especially in big companies and big pharma versus biotech. A friend of mine was sharing that there's a little bit more in the way of ceilings. And as a master's, you would have more of a bench-centric role, Whereas as a PhD, you're going to, after all this is said and done, after you go to grad school and leave, if you have a PhD, you're going to be expected to go handle things that you don't necessarily have the training for. So you're going to be expected to be a manager and be a project lead. And it's actually not something that's built into many PhD programs that I'm aware of. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as you're deciding PhD versus master's. If you're in a PhD program where all you're doing is keeping your head down and focusing on your science, and then all of a sudden you've never tried leading a group of people, you don't have undergraduates or interns to work with to even feel out if that's something that you want, then you're going to be staring at this big open world of jobs that's expected of you, and you don't have much to even know if you enjoy that. So fully echo the previous comments of try to explore as much as you can and evaluate yourself and what you like and what you're good at.
So we have next question. The scholarship options for students applying abroad for either master's or PhD, and what are the financial requirements? And this question is open to all.
I think as far as UK is concerned, for masters, I think there is very limited scholarship opportunities. But then if it is for PhD, then the best bet would be the UK Commonwealth Scholarship, whose deadline is usually February every year. And apart from that would be the only one that I can think of. But then the other ones are like the university specific ones, which are like they automatically consider you once when you apply. Like if it is Oxford, we are talking about Clarendon Scholarship, or there is and also some John Fellowship Fund, which are like students are automatically considered once when they apply by the December deadline, which is a standard. But apart from that, Cambridge has the Gates Cambridge Fellowship, and Oxford has Oxford Rhodes. Both are like of a similar high standard, and these ones are like deadlines are like in like June, July every year, and you can apply. Like I mean, if you are looking for to join in a course, applying for that scholarship, it can be it is usually a year after applying. So those are another options. And apart from that, I would suggest people to look into Vice Chancellor Fellowship or Presidential Fellowship in each of the universities, because they have their own tailored specific fellowships. So these are the ones that I know. But apart from that, I know that there are some very small scholarships like Oxford Cambridge Society of India, and then there's also INLAC's Foundation. But I think these are like very small amounts. But if we are talking about funding for like a whole PhD, like 3 or 4 years, then the ones that I mentioned just now would be the ones to be looking out for. Yeah.
So any insights from Germany, Giulia, to know about the German?
I think honestly for doing a PhD in Germany, it's fairly easy because there are a lot of programs you can apply, and there are a lot of open positions actually, because it's kind of cheap for the university to have a PhD. So to get a PhD, it's fairly easy. To move from a PhD then move forward, then it becomes bit more difficult, I would say. But as I said, so there are programs. So each university, some universities, they are combined together. But then it will be sort of up to the professor and the position that they have, whether you are directly paid and employed by the university or you have some sort of fellowship, but that doesn't really matter to you. So I don't know, I would say it's certainly easier than getting to the UK for doing a PhD. I don't know, I think I had because I am not a chemist, I'm a computational person, so I did computing sort of chemoinformatics, I would say. So I think most of the people there, you guys are lab person. What I would point out is that as a person that works in the field of chemistry, but as a computational chemist, it's not so easy then afterwards to move out of academia, because when I started during I studied bioinformatics. I'm a bioinformatician by training, and I decided to do, as I was saying, so I focus on molecular dynamics and I study the structure and the function of the protein, but that requires computing powers that the university have. Rarely industry has this kind of thing. So for what I did and so I had to move from it. I changed my field and I moved into the omics as a bioinformatician, and then it worked out. But to sort of say, because when I started some years ago, it was a hot topic that we said the future would have been computer-aided drug design. So I focus on drug design. But when I finished my master, then my PhD, it turns out that actually drug designing was no longer such a hot topic. And I felt like after my PhD, I want to move out of academia and enter an industry. And that turns out not to be that easy as I expected, because yes, everybody would say, yeah, you can do all this kind of fancy stuff, but you need some computers that in time, especially time that industry does not have that time. Academia has that time, but not industry. So that was but on the other side, I learned how to program, I learned how to code, and that would sort of gave me opportunity then to do well in this in bioinformatics and in the omics field. But just to say that you might have your straight idea where you want to go, because when you start, that's in a hot topic, hot field. But by the time you finish your master and PhD, you might no longer be that thing. But yes. But I would definitely say that Germany is a good place to do a PhD, and it's fairly easy to get into a PhD program, I would say. And I saw like a person wrote in the meeting chat that she graduated in 2020 and she wants to start a PhD in 2023. I think there are no time limits when you can do your PhD. You can finish your master with your master degree, get into industry, and then 10 years later saying, but I love science, I want to go back to academia. And you can actually, so there is no time limit for that.
Okay. Yes. So the next question: how many colleges should one apply to be on safer side, and how to decide this? What are the general requirements like documents and the forms needed to apply for the universities? And this question is again open to all.
I think the number that you're going to apply to is going to be dependent on how much time and effort you want to put into the application process, because you could spend 6 months sending out 100 applications. But I think one of the things, and I know from friends of mine that were international students, that is a missing piece that can be very, very critical is, okay, I'm going to get into a PhD program and I'm going to be here for 4 or 5 years. And I got into a university that I heard of, that I know of, or I got in, good chance of getting in with a PI that I've heard of or know of, but I've never been to the university to start. And I have no idea if I'm going to be happy, comfortable living where I am for 4 or 5 years. And as I always told my own students, if you visit a place, on a recruiting weekend and you walk into the chemistry building and after 5 minutes, you really don't feel good, that's probably not a place that you want to end up spending 5 years in. And I think for international students, that's one of the hurdles, that they hear of places. And why? Because they either hear of it back in their home country or they're familiar with it by reading the literature and knowing that. And they never have the opportunity to actually visit and say, okay, and I think it was mentioned before, I get to a prestigious university and they've never set foot on campus and they don't realize, now I have to be here for 5 years. Oh, I don't particularly like this place, but I'm going to be here for 5 years. All right, am I going to be happy and am I going to work to my potential and really grow because I'm in a place where I'm unhappy? And I think that's one of the issues, that if there was somehow, and I don't know, I'm not a politician, that you could set something up to make that easier for international students just to get some experience, just to at least visit. I think that would make it a lot easier. Now, with regard to documentation, and I think we have gotten better in this, I think most universities in the United States have offices for like international student affairs and things of that nature that can much more directly answer questions. So, I mean, I was a department head for a long time, and I knew other department heads, and they're like, I get all these questions from students, and they say, I feel bad because I'm a chemist and I don't know how to answer papers regarding all of this. So I just keep forwarding them to the international students office, and I can get relatively fast answers for them, but I can't give them solid explanation behind why, because like I said, I'm not a government official. I'm a chemist, and my role here at the university is to teach chemistry and conduct research in chemistry. But I'm at least thankful that my university has an office that I can immediately pick up the phone and call and say, I've got an international student. This is what it is that they're having trouble getting over, and I don't understand all these forms and all of this. Can you please explain this to me so that I can give this potential student some kind of a concrete answer? So I think we've gone and made a lot of gains and progress in making the process, I don't want to use the term easier, but I think we've opened up better venues, better avenues for people to get the information that they need to make the process a little bit easier, instead of just saying, all right, well, we're chemists, we're smart people, we can figure this out, and they have no clue how to deal with the paperwork. So I think a lot of universities have taken the onus on to have staff that can assist students in that realm and answer those heavy questions that, again, I'm a scientist, I have no clue about what all this supporting documentation has to be.
Um, when and how to start the cold emailing prospective PIs? And I would like to direct this question to Carlson.
I mean, I would say like 6 months to 1 year before joining for a particular course, because it would also mean if the supervisor is either looking for I mean, because in some cases supervisors would have applied for grants and they'd be waiting. In some cases they would have already applied for a grant, they would have got it, but they wouldn't have advertised it yet. So applying like 6 months to 1 year before would be the right time. And I think even some universities fellowships happen like 1 year is the window. So approaching supervisor and also having a letter of support from him in applying for university-based scholarships would be quite helpful. So at least on that front, I would say this time would be better. But when I was applying to other universities, I also applied to UC Berkeley, and I think maybe other universities might do that, but one unique thing that I found there was, as soon as I registered an account there, they sent me an email saying like, for the next academic year, these are the potential supervisors who would be taking students. And that list was quite helpful to narrow down at least like which field or who would you be interested on. Is the person who you are interested in even willing to take someone? So that's also another way of looking at things. But I think in the recent days, I'm also seeing a lot of advertisements coming on Twitter, like for vacancies for like even like master's project or PhD. So that would be something that I would ask people to look out for. And yeah, that and of course, if someone is writing an email, I made a mistake in the past of writing a huge email, which was a very bad idea. And I realized, yeah, short and succinct is the best way to approach, because people don't have time to read it. So yeah, just make it clear cut, and yeah, that would be the way to go forward.
All right, thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I wanted to say that, you're emailing prospective PIs, but you can also email students that are in the lab, maybe past and present, because they're probably on the computers for a longer time, and they will probably read your emails rather than the PI who's super busy with 10,000 things that they're doing. So trying to find students who maybe, usually lab websites have description on what the student is working on. So if there's a particular area in the lab that you really like, or it appeals to you, you can reach out to a student. I would say getting a response from a student is probably, the chances are higher. So don't feel shy to just reach out to a student saying, I really want to know more about this lab and so on and so forth. So going that route might also be something that you might want to do. I haven't done it per se, but I know colleagues who have done that, and that has greatly, helped them. You can maybe have a short Zoom call or something with them too, if you're really, really interested and you want to come, because we here as students, we're happy to share what we're doing, right? Of course, not everything, but in terms of general idea, what goes on in the lab and so on and so forth. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, that you can always email and reach out to students, and they will also be really helpful in answering whatever questions that you may have.
If I can also add very shortly to that, when you approach having a professor or a student in Europe, I know Indian style, you might send out very often this CV that are 10 pages long, and then you write everything out. That's absolutely not the style we have here. Keep it short, keep it focused on, because I remember also during my PhD time, I was reached out by students, and they were sending this CV where they might be 5 years younger than me, and they have 20 pages with everything on. No, and the moment that a European professor or a student receives such a CV, it's just trash, cutting away. So keep it short, keep it focused, keep it simple. That's the key.
And if I can add one thing, when you're starting to look, especially in the United States, I can say, if you're looking for PIs and you're looking at universities, the advice I always give is make sure there's at least 2 or 3 faculty at the university that you would be willing to work for the simple reason that every university might do it differently. It might be open recruitment, it might be rotations, it might be the results of rotations. So just because you got admitted to this university where this PI happens to be on the faculty doesn't guarantee that you're going to get into that group based on how the department and every individual department goes about student selection for PI. So I said, always make sure you have more than one person that you would be willing to work for in case you don't get your first choice, or in case somebody says, look, I was applying for renewal of funding and I didn't get it, so I can't take anybody this year, but I'm hoping to be able to take people next year. You always want to make sure that you have at least more than one person that you would be willing to work for.
Thank you. What can we pursue after completing further education abroad, and what are the job opportunities? And this question is open to all.
I think the job opportunities are whatever it is that you can make them, because you're going to come out with a particular skill set. And I know one of the questions that I've been asked several times from PhD students is, should I do a postdoc or not? And what it is that they want to do. And 2 of the options that I usually see people mentioning is, I want to do a postdoc for this person. And I'm like, well, that's exactly in the same field that you got your PhD. Well, I want to be the world's expert in this area. Or other people will say, I want a postdoc in this because it's something totally different than what I did my PhD in, so that I can get varied experience. And I think that kind of decision has to be a personal decision based on, as I had mentioned earlier, knowledge of self, what it is that I want to do and where it is that this is going to take me. But with respect to job opportunities, I think searching for jobs is like writing the dissertation. It's the job that you have to do that you don't want to do, but you just have to glue yourself to this chair and do it. And you have to look around and see what's out there and say, okay, can I see myself doing this? and you have to pursue what options you can and talk to as many people that you can that might give you some insight to what it's like on that side working there to say, yeah, I want to try this, or no, I don't. And when you start looking for jobs, and I think Helen alluded to this a little bit, you have to do your research into that company just as much as you did your research for the degree. You've got to know what the company stands for, what its missions are. I mean, current things that you see. Has the company released a statement on diversity and inclusion, and how is it that they're planning on implementing that? If they have environmental standards like, oh, we want to be carbon neutral by 2030 or 2040, you have to know those kind of things when you go to start applying for jobs to say, can I see myself fitting in that kind of environment, or is that something that's at odds with how it is that I feel and it's not going to get me anywhere?
Thank you.
Right, right. So we have another specific question. So she is pursuing biotechnology, and she wants to know whether there are any specific fields in bioinformatics. So I think Giulia can answer this question.
Can you repeat? Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah. So this girl, she is pursuing biotechnology, and she wants to know if there are any up and coming areas in bioinformatics, and what are the prospects for that.
Well, omics is the future, isn't it? Yeah. So bioinformatics, I don't know, like in your institute, it's very broad. So whenever you study bioinformatics, it tells everything and nothing, because you can be a software developer as well as somebody that does cheminformatics or somebody that does pure bioinformatics, so sequencing. I did, as I said, a bit of all sort of. So I started with structural design. That was my cheminformatics. But as I said, when I started, I think when you are an undergraduate and you start as a PhD program, you don't really know. You might have an idea or a feeling where you want to go, what you like, and so on. But after, in Germany, a PhD might last 6 years, and after 6 years, you might have a better idea. So, for example, in my case, I knew that that wasn't this field, so quantum chemistry was a bit too complicated for me, and I knew that I couldn't be very successful in doing that. I would have spent a lot of time and energy and still gotten the results and the same opportunities in other fields. So I had the feeling that moving back to classic bioinformatics, sequencing, RNA sequences, DNA sequencing, and then I ended up doing working with microbiome, which is at the moment a very transcriptomics, and then all these omics are kind of related to each other. So I would say that as long in bioinformatics, as long as you're good with coding, that might be not hard coding. I mean, even quick and dirty, but you need to be able to, to do some coding, to work with big data and so on. Then these omics, it's sort of the same technique they do applied with between together. So, and there is a very, I think, thin line between bioinformatics and biostatistics. So if you want to get into bioinformatics, you certainly need to be good also in, or at least a little bit better in statistics, knows a bit of statistics, because often the PIs we do not even know the difference. That we call you, oh, so this is my biostatistician. Well, actually my bioinformatician, but it doesn't matter. So it's sort of a very thin line between the two of them. But I think currently, at least in Germany, I don't know in the rest, but there are a lot of job opportunity for bioinformatician. And each and every lab requires a bioinformatician. So I think for job opportunities, I would say that it's something to keep in the back of my mind.
Yeah, so thank you. And I would like to ask all the panelists if there are any aspects that we missed, or if you want to give us any specific tips regarding the graduate application process. You're free to, just tell us, like, give us tips or anything that we've missed.
If I could just, there was a question in the chat that Helen had answered, and I agree with what Helen had answered. And the question has to be, when you're looking for letters, you don't want to have 500 recommendations. You want to make sure that the people that you ask for recommendations are going to be the ones that are going to, one, first of all, know you and know what makes you tick and know what makes you passionate and can speak to that. So I'll give you an example. When I was applying for my job, my analytical professor, I mean, again, and I was an organic chemist, but he was an analytical professor, but he was one of the people that really knew that I wanted to be an academic, and he had given me opportunities. We had many a conversation. He would be a good person to ask because we had talked about this many, many hours. And he was somebody that knew me as a student, knew me as a major and where it is that I wanted to go, and could most, honestly give an assessment of what it is, how well that I fit what this particular position was looking for. So that's why, as we had said many a times, it's very important to start to know people, but not just simply they know you, you know them, but they really know who you are and what makes you passionate about what it is that you do. Because they're the people that are going, as we had mentioned very early on about mentors, they're the people that are going to know how to connect the dots. And again, we've got all these titles and things, as Giulia had said about, bioinformatics, biostatistician. Don't worry, they're all wrapped in the same thing. But because the fact that we're starting out, we don't know. And that's okay, because guess what? Everybody who starts out has to go through the same thing. And by people who know you and what it is that you desire and what it is that you're passionate about, they'll be able to connect you with the right people in the right positions. And you might look at a position and be like, yeah, none of this sounds like anything that I like. But when you really look at it, you say, oh, wait a minute. Yes, it is. And you have to be open-minded to that to keep it and say, I'm going to try this. So when you're looking for letters, make sure that the people that you're asking are people that really know you and what it is that you're about and what it is that you're trying to achieve, because they're the ones that can write the best letters of support for you.
Right, that was very insightful. Does anybody else want to add on that, or any other tips that we might have missed?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Alright.
say just one more thing. I think, at least in my personal opinion, when I did my undergrad and masters, as far as the curriculum that we follow, what I kind of felt was we kind of learn a lot of the fundamentals of how subject works, but then we don't really focus on the application part of it, which kind of undermines like what are the research areas that are existing, or what are the different fields of science that are already there. So I was kind of thinking like how to find this out. And of course, one thing would be like, yeah, if there are any other conferences happening locally, that would be, or virtually, that would be a best way to go forward. But apart from that, I would suggest looking into review journals, like there are like journals like ACS Chemical Review or RSC Chemical Society Review, where they have a particular kind of review called tutorial review, where they say that the motto is to just inform undergrads or like potential like students to know how a subject is, what is a subject is, what is its current trend and what would be its future. And that would be I would say that's the best way to look into a particular field, to say like, then you can have a good look at whether the field has a scope or not, or is it a field that's going to die soon. It can be up to each one's disposal. Apart from these two, I would also suggest current opinion in chemical biology, because it's clearly opinions from different scientists working in different fields. So yeah, so that would also be a very good way to even identify potential supervisors who are good in their field. So that is how I shortlisted the potential. That's how I looked at things, and I would recommend that to be as the best way to go forward. Of course, there are other journals as well, but these would be my gold standard that I would follow. And yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, we have a different kind of a question. So, a student says his interest is in marketing after his graduation, and he also is interested into research regarding stem cell and regeneration therapy. So, he's asking if he can cope up for like both the things. If he could pursue an integrated program that tackles management as well as the research aspect of things. So he's asking if he could like cope up with it, and he's asking for advice regarding that. So like anybody can like answer.
I would maybe look at some of the companies that are doing stem cell research and see if there are internships. I mean, I'm not sure if that doesn't exactly, that's not advice on the PhD route, but it's an interesting new field. So.
All right, great. So I want to ask our audience if anybody has any questions, they can raise their hand, and you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Okay, so Ikra
Yes, Ikra.
here has a question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
I am a final year student from BFAM, and I have a sudden interest in skincare industry, and I want to pursue my career in this field, mostly in Germany. So I don't know which path should I take, because this is a field like nobody has no knowledge about it. Like I cannot ask anyone regarding it because it's completely different. It's not like I want uh, analysis, I want biochemistry, I want something different. So I'm not sure whether I want masters or I want to just do the job, but I want my career in this field. So how can I proceed with it?
Well, so I would say either you try to get into a company directly with your master, and that you walk your way through once directly, or the problem is that because it's become so common and fairly easy, as I said, to have a PhD, most of the people do have a PhD. So if you don't have a PhD, then it becomes very difficult to then enter, because simply you cannot, when you apply to a company, to a job, it will be the minimal requirement to have a PhD. That's kind of the difficulties, I would say, at the moment. So because each of us has a PhD, if you don't have a PhD, you might not even get into the application process because of that. I think you said skincare or something. I would say you could focus on the Northern Rhine-Westphalia is probably the region, so around Düsseldorf, Köln. That's probably the area where you want to look at. So I know that there is you shouldn't look for a specific region or geographical area, but I think for that kind of field, that probably the best places in Germany.
I'd like to add to that a little bit. So skincare, marketing, energy, I think, first of all, it's okay to want to pursue a different path than what you're hearing around you. And actually, that's wonderful. And the different types of positions that exist at different degree levels, there are actually a lot more positions open to bachelor's level people. Like if you think of every company, I mean, especially the big ones, they're drawn as little pyramids for a reason. There are less positions at the top. There are actually more positions at the bottom. Now, you're not going to be doing the same things that you would do coming in as a PhD, but if you're not, it's not a bad way to, while being able to, you know, pay rent, figure out what you want to do a little bit. Is to actually get in and get some experience, especially if you're not finding a PhD track that is aligned with your interests. But I think that also there are directions to go, and I'd like to send some follow-up information on the skincare side of things, because there are big companies doing this. There's Procter and Gamble. There's also, I think, smaller companies. If you're really trying to explore how to do something, a smaller company, even at a bachelor's or a master's level, is going to give you the freedom to explore more options, more aspects of the business. You know, even you know, if you are at the bench and you want to go, you know, explore the marketing side of things, you can do that in a small company. Especially, you can just go talk to the person who's working over there and see, you know, what is it like in your day, and go take them to lunch or something. And so there are paths to get to where you want to go, but like all of us, I think, have said, it's a matter of, I think, just trying. And none of the paths are it's so hard to see 10 years where you'll be, and know where that path starts.
So, like, in what field should I masters if I want to go in skincare? So, what is the subject should I go for masters? To master.
I think for that one, you'd have to investigate the companies and see what the companies are looking for. And for whatever is the hot topics or the big things, product development at this time, what degree areas do the companies need to support that right now? And that could change as time moves on, but you really have to investigate the companies and say, okay, here's a company, whatever it might be, XYZ, that's doing something that I find very interesting. What type of people are they hiring now? What degree requirements, what degree areas are they asking for now? And how is that going to grow and change and shape with the developments? I mean, we're all scientists here. We hope that science never stops growing. All right. That's sort of the goal of this. But how is this field going to evolve such that I will be able to get into it with a skill set that is meaningful to the company at this point in time?
Thank you so much. Right. Thank you. We have another question, which asks, when exactly do we start the application process, like for Indian students? So either Abhishek or Carlson can maybe answer.
I can go, I guess. Well, it really depends on you, right? It's when you feel ready and when you want to apply, because I don't think there's, you know, a fixed time. You can really apply anytime you want. But for me, it was in between my third year and final year, because I didn't want to take a gap. I wanted to come here directly after I graduate. So I didn't, but that was just me. Other people might want to do maybe do a master's in India, then come for a PhD, or you might want to go to the industry, try to get some research experience, maybe work, you know, get experience in the industry and so on. So it really, really depends on what you want. And, you know, do you want to take some time after your bachelor's or your undergrad degree to explore other fields and then come back and so on and so forth? But I guess if you don't want to, and if you want to immediately come here after graduating, then I think the summer between your third and fourth year, that's the most crucial time where you would want to look up or finalize the universities you want to apply to, look at the requirements, you know, all the exams that you have to take in order to come here, you know, try to study for those, get the material and so on and so forth, which you would have to do anyways, even if you were to come later. But I guess the decision depends really on you, what you want. Do you want to immediately come here, or do you want to wait, get some other kind of experience? and so on. So I think it's a case by case and a personal decision, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. And so we have KI sir here, Abhishek. So would you like to maybe KI sir, are you there? I think he's not here. Okay. So does anybody have any last points, or are there any more questions? Or else maybe like we can move on to the vote of thanks and all the formal stuff.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
I have a question. Am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, are there any upcoming subjects like many of the students are opting for subjects like HEOR for their masters and PhD programs. So are there any different subjects or upcoming research topics that students are nowadays opting for both masters and PhD?
I think the energy side of chemistry is evolving in some really interesting directions.
Well, not to forget artificial intelligence, if you wanted to.
Oh, that's huge.
I would say machine learning as also in chemistry, there's a lot of I think now Google has destroyed the field because but besides that, maybe there might be something open for structure prediction. I mean, for some.
No, green chemistry, sustainability, carbon capture, they're all the really hot topics right now. Renewable energy, clean energy.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
All right. So I want to thank all the panelists on behalf of ACS for joining today. And I'll ask Yash Gondegaonkar to give the formal vote of thanks.
Hello everyone, I am Yash Gondegaonkar from ACS-BCP. I am here to propose the vote of thanks for the event. Firstly, I would like to thank all the panelists, Abhishek Kulkarni, Helen Hernandez, Dr. Carlson Alexander, Dr. James Murray, and Dr. Giulia Pagani. I would like to thank each and every one of you for sharing your expertise with us, solving all the doubts, answering all the questions patiently. And next, I would like to thank our faculty advisor, Dr. Krishna Iyer, and our faculty co-advisors, Dr. Sagar Patel and Dr. Elvis Martis, for their continuous guidance. And I would like to thank all the members of ACS-BCP student chapter for organizing and managing this event. Next, I would like to thank all the undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD students and faculty members who attended this program. It was a very enriching experience for everyone. Now, we have uploaded the feedback form in the chat box. Please fill that feedback form. And finally, I would like to request all the participants to switch on their cameras so that we can take a screenshot. Harshita, are we done with the screenshot?
We are done. Thank you.
So once again, thank you everyone for attending this session. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.